right, first, thank you for doing this. I've been a nervous wreck waiting for this one. I don't know why do you make me nervous?
I don't know why I make you nervous.
I mean, you make me a nervous wreck. I'm telling you, I'm gonna have to move my napkin here.
I'll put mine over here. I don't like black flags at all.
No black flags. But thank you very much. I do appreciate this. This is a huge honor. We're here at Bernardin's. We're close to the Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much.
Huge honor. You're in the Hall of Fame now. How big honor was that?
Well, I can tell you that when you think about your racing career,
thank you, man.
I think about your dad, and to see all those legends get in the Hall of Fame, and for me to have that opportunity last year was amazing. My dad had a saying, effort equals results. It's a saying we use with our 66,000 employees every single day. In fact, I carry a coin with me with that message. I have one with me tonight. It's always a reminder to me where I came from and where I'm going. Thank you again for this special Hall of Fame honor. I always said, how does a guy from the North get in a Southern Hall of Fame? But I guess we finally broke through.
When did racing enter your world?
Well, I guess probably back in 1951, when my dad took me to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Yeah.
You know, I was 14 years old at that point, and I guess I got injected with speed. And, you know, I was a kid that liked to go fast. I took my dad's Buick to the drag racing and blew his transmission out. I did all the things that a kid shouldn't do. But no, I raced somewhat on the dirt tracks, you know, with sports cars. We had a little out of Canfield, Ohio, and places like that, and then got into sports car racing, really. That was the early days of my original racing career.
So when did you actually start driving a car, driving at the racetrack?
Probably when I was in just going to college.
Yeah.
I went to Lehigh, and you know, I did a bunch of hill climbs in Reading and Giants to Spur up in Wilkes-Barre and places like that. And that kind of got me going. I remember you get the kick out of this one. I got a Corvette on a GMAC payment plan, and that was my race car that I first raced. So I remember I couldn't wreck that thing because I had no insurance, and the bank would have been after me. But you know, that's how we all start, just a piece at a time.
But you had huge success as a driver. That's not, you were like the Sports Illustrated Sports Car Driver of the Year. You did the President's Cup. You won, what, 3 out of 4 years or whatever. I don't understand how you win the President's Cup one year and then you win the Kimberly Cup or something the next year as the most improved driver. How do you improve when you're already the champion?
Well, I don't know. Maybe they needed someone to give that trophy to. That's always what I say. But, you know, winning the President's Cup down in Washington, and Curtis LeMay was head of the Joint Chief of Staffs, and going there to receive that was a pretty big deal in those days. And had some great cars, and, you know, we took probably you don't know this, but we took a Cooper wrecked Formula One car back in the 60s. And of course, you sat in the center, and we put a body on it. And I got the engine out of the car that Jack Brabham drove in Indianapolis. It was a 2.7 liter Climax. And I put the body on it and went to Riverside, won Laguna Seca. Then they, of course, outlawed it because I was sitting in the center. So then we moved to the side still one, and then I sold that car to Bruce McLaren, and that started McLaren Cars.
No way.
Yeah, well, he put a Buick in it. Yeah, imagine that.
No way.
Yeah.
You quit when you were, what, 27, 28, or stepped out and became an owner. Is that the way it worked?
Well, actually, Kyle, it was in 65 because I'd left Alcoa and went to work for a Chevrolet dealer in Philadelphia. And my goal was to be able to buy it after 2 years. And I got to that point. George McKean was the owner, and I went to work for him. So at that point, you know, I had to get insurance. I had to go to the bank to get financing, and they said, look, we can't have race drivers. In fact, you know, Jim Rathman at that point was a very, very strong Indy driver in his own right, and he had a Chevy dealer down in Florida. And the point was, we'll give you the franchise, but you can't be a driver because we need you to be a driver here every day. And that was the decision. It was a business decision. It wasn't anything that was hard to make because I felt longer term, I'd rather build a business than I could have a race team, and that's exactly what evolved.
So you just took the driving side of it and set it to the side and said, okay, this is who I'm going to be.
Really, and then it was for about 1.5 years, and then our first entry, which you'd get a kick out of, was in the Daytona 24-hour with a Corvette. And I remember I got Sun Oil Company to give me $250 sponsorship, and I put the Sunoco decal on the side of the car. And you'll get a kick out of this. In the middle of the night, we had a big accident. We knocked the front off, so you have to have lights. So I went and got 2 long flashlights, Rayovac flashlights, and taped them to the front fenders, what was left, so they couldn't black flag us. So we were even innovative in those days.
Yes.
Mark Donohue, one of America's most successful drivers, will pilot a new 5-liter Chevy-powered T70 Lola for Penske Racing.
I have constantly, from the time I was a little boy, it's Roger Penske and Mark Donohue. I think of Richard Childress and Dale Earnhardt Sr., but for me, that's who you are. That was what put you guys, to me, on the map. How did that relationship come about?
Well, I guess I met Mark the first time up at Lime Rock, and we were looking to start a Can-Am car. So Mark and I got together, and really that was the start of the friendship. And he moved to Philadelphia. He committed himself there. And then we took a more engineering approach, to the whole process. And then migrating from that into IndyCar, because we went to Indy in '69 together. That was the first time we went. And it was, we told Sun it would be a 3-year program before we could win the race. And, that's 69, 70, 71. We led it in 71, but won it in 72.
The checkered flag falls for number 66. As Donohue completes his 200th lap. Donohue's crew celebrates the victory. And after 4 years of trying, the young engineer from Pennsylvania moves into victory lane.
His approach was, as a partner, you almost forgot he was a driver.
Yeah.
Sometimes I said, you better get some sleep, got to drive this thing sometime. But he was very understated, great skill to think he could race. It was a great, obviously, road racer because we had great success, as you said, with the Camaros and the Jab. And he won our first NASCAR race in '73 out of Riverside, with a Matador. They used to call that the flying brick. I mean, that's what Allison used to call it. But Mark was a terrific guy. We lost him, sadly, at practice in Austria at the Formula One race. But again, it's a long story these days from that time.
And that's, I wanted to get to that because you came in, you win, and then you run a few races.
And there's Roger Penske walking on a hot rock right now.
And then Bobby runs
75.
75, 76, right along there. Bobby runs a full.
That's our first Southern 500 we won with him.
Richard really put on the press at the end, and I'm just really happy for us and American Motors, Matador, and Coke.
And he was a big inspiration for me and a great friend. He ran at Indy. I remember number 12. On our Indy car. I remember we rained out for a couple of days, and the damn engine blew up, I think, after the start because it had been sitting there cold. We never got it warm enough when he blew up. But imagine, Bobby Allison going to Indy, he talk about not knowing what was going to happen. But it's great to hope we can see some of that crossover in the future.
You come in and Bobby runs, and then a little bit later you go away, and we don't see you again for 12, 13 years, 14 years almost.
It was just the commitment that I had on everything else. I guess it was cost, it was sponsorship, it was priorities at that point. And, we had started to commit into IndyCar, winning 72, our first race, so you can see what that meant.
We get paid to win. If we don't win, we won't be around. So that's kind of our motivation.
So, and then you come back, and as you said, you come back with Rusty, and when in a little bit, and then you make the full commitment in 91. You've been here ever since. Was that a tough commitment to make when you looked at it, or was it just straight up business again?
Well, we decided to come, and I remember we weren't sure. In fact, Rusty, we sat down in Daytona, and I said, should we run the whole season? He said, don't spin out, we're going to be fine. And of course, we started out and had success, and you think about the races that he won.
Oh, yeah.
And we were close to the champ. We won 8 or 9 or 10 races some years, which was, and never got to the championship. But it was a commitment. I guess once we decided to go, we went. Of course, Rusty at the time, he came to a point where he realized it's time for him to do something else, and he was able to get into his dealerships. He thought about it. He invested. He thought long term. I think we helped him there.
Yeah.
And that was a start, and we never looked back.
What has Indy meant to you as we make this progression?
Well, I think if you look at anybody's foundation in racing, yeah, I've been there many years just as a spectator, and obviously your goal is to have a team, and to get to Indy and to be able to perform there. We won it 18 times. It seems it's a big number when you think you have to do that, but it's the same every year. And when we go to Indy this year, we'll have over 700 years of experience on our team and our pits. So it's that continuity, it's the domain knowledge that you have to go to that race, and it's pretty special.
My dad always says when he rolls through that tunnel at Daytona, it's 1959 all over again. And he's that 20-year-old kid, dragging a car in there with my granddad. Do you still have that emotion when you roll into Indy and you look at, it's like you're 14 again?
Well, when you roll in there, it's amazing. And I'd have to say that every time they say, gentlemen, start your engines, I get the goosebumps as I did probably when I was there when I was 14. But it's a special place, and it's really the holy grail of the state of Indiana. I don't think there's any track in the world that has the love of that place. You stand there and you look at this, and just so everybody, it has 230,000 seats, real seats. That's 4.5 times what the Super Bowl will have. And I think that starts to hit you, pretty hard between the eyes. But the opportunity, and it's a generational race too. Maybe enough people haven't heard about that. It's a race at the Indianapolis 500, but the people that own those tickets, they don't give them up. And as getting into the business, as you expect me to, I found out people every year want to upgrade their tickets. They don't want to not have them. They want to, I'll keep mine, but can I move up to where I want to be? So as we sit here today, 78% of the tickets are sold for that race.
Wow.
78, and all the suites are sold.
Wow.
So it's a generational. People want to go there. It's an experience. And what we have to do, I have to do in our team, we've got to make it even better.
How do you keep that feeling alive at Indy for the next generation and the next generation?
Certainly, our focus is on guest experience. And to me, we need that. When you have an asset like this, in today's world, if someone has a car plant, they don't run it just one shift, do they? So we've got to look at utilization. If we can reinvest, you reinvest because you generate revenue, and that's what we have to do. Look, we've got certainly the Brickyard, we have the big race on the Indy 500 on Memorial Day, and there's other things that go on there, but we need to look at special events. And fans are looking for a variety, they're looking for change-up. We're gonna be able to take this thing to the next level, but we've done it in our business over time. And remember, we've got two customers. We've got the person outside, that's the fan, the guest. Then we also have the car owners and the people and the officials inside. In some way, we've got to treat them both better. But that track, from the basic track, is in great shape. And I think the experience that people have there, but from an overall standpoint, it's going to be blocking and tackling.
As you have taken over, have you found things at Indy behind closed doors and in different buildings and then in different places that you visited, because I'm sure you visited every square inch of that place, that in all the years you've been there, you never knew was there?
Well, I went into the museum, and a certain part of the artifacts in the museum belong to the Speedway. So they said, look, we got a picture of every program since way back 50 years. I said, well, do you have the 18 years that we won the race? And sure enough, so I got a black and white and a color picture of each program. Then I said, listen, you don't have any pictures from 51, do you? And sure enough, they bring out, and I got 25 pictures, black and whites, the old pagoda. Lee Wallard won that race. Loretta Young was in the winner's circle. And to see the guys lined up, and they had the drivers meeting. And the great thing was, they had the 100-mile-an-hour club leather jackets. So those are things that just history. And I'm gonna, once we get through this race season, I want to just go there for a couple of days. To me, every day I go there, I find something else that we look at that we can make better.
Where do you think we're at right now in motorsports? I'm not just talking about NASCAR. I'm talking motorsports. Well, everywhere.
I think that right now the costs have gotten way out of line from the standpoint of what's available, from the standpoint of sponsorship, because without sponsors today, maybe there are people around that can write checks, but not many of them.
Yeah.
So I think that right now, we got to look at our costs. I think we got to look at venues, length of races. I think diversity in these races, meaning can we run different series on the same weekends? Not that they're competing with each other, but let's have more of a show. It's just not 4 quarters. Let's have 8 quarters,
Yeah.
and maybe 4 of them are different.
Do you think the sport will, and I'm talking straight NASCAR here, that it will shift a little bit to fewer races?
Well, the problem we have is probably, number one, what's the fan experience going to be? Can they afford to go to 36 races? So that's going to have some impact on, the stadiums. Remember, I think they're all overbuilt from the standpoint of people taking stands out now because they can see these races different ways. But at the end of the day, you've got all these promoters, the ISCs, you got the boys in Charlotte, with the Smiths. They've invested in all these tracks. I mean, big money. And it's hard to say, hey, okay, now we're going to take a couple of races away from you.
Yeah.
You with me? And all of a sudden their business model doesn't work. So you got that dynamic. You got the fan himself. How long does he want to sit and watch a 3 or 4 hour race? And how can we change it up? Meaning he's there, let's give him more than just a NASCAR race, or that's why we're going to have a road race, XFINITY in Indianapolis. So I think the costs, every race costs us so much. And what's the sponsorship dollar? So what's the TV? How much content do they want? So you got TV, you got the fans, you got the track ownerships, and you got the sponsor expectations. And I think that's all merging today. And, with a new car and new schedules and things like, I'm talking NASCAR now.
Yeah.
I think they're saying, look, we're going to have to do a pivot here.
My biggest concern growing up in the sport and being around the sport right now is, where are the new owners? Because I don't see new owners coming in. How do we change and make the model attractive to new people, to new owners to come into the sport?
Well, I think you got to start with the feeder series, really. I mean, we've got people that brought trucks in have gone to XFINITY, but I think it's all cost.
Yeah.
Let me say this. There's great drivers that we'll never see that never get a chance. And that's what I think you're talking about.
Yeah.
Now, we could be getting to too much plain vanilla by everybody building the same engines, everybody having the same car, except for the silhouette of the, and that maybe is a little bit of maybe your concern is one thing. On the other hand, we're looking at the same thing at IndyCar. How can we get a new owner in that wants to step up?
Yeah.
And I guess the ability and the fact that we're taking the Cup drivers in many cases, so they're not all running in XFINITY now, winning all the races. And there's been some great races with these young kids out there.
Yeah.
And I think what we're going to have to do is have that series with a cost locked down, so they can build new car owners. Because if you don't, we're only going to be around so long. And when you think about 3 or 4 of us putting 3 or 4 cars in, you take 12 cars out all of a sudden, it's going to open it up. I mean, it's going to leave a hole.
Yes.
Leave a hole. On the other hand, I think it's down to cost. Because there's in every town, there's a couple of guys want to get together and take you in a car, let's go race.
Yeah.
But if it's a $10 million bill, not many people are standing up, and they probably don't have a sponsor. And that to me is the biggest thing. And maybe you have a series that we might have 28 XFINITY races, but you can run 18 of them and still run for the championship.
Yeah.
See, I would rather see that where we give you, say, 5 or 6 mulligans.
Yeah. Okay.
And then if look, and then they take your best 18 races, you might have to run 25 to get to your best 18. And if you haven't succeeded, you run a few more. But that way, you could really bring people in and be able to run with less cost. And that would just take it, say, we're going to reduce the number if you want to be the champion.
So you received the Medal of Freedom, and that was obviously, I've sat at the table with my dad. He's got one, and you've got one. The only 2 guys in motorsports ever to receive that. How big an honor when you look at that and the scope of what you've done?
Well, number one, knowing that Richard had one, and you think of the other people that have received this medal. And I'll tell you a cute story. I was traveling, and they said, the White House wants to talk to you. Well, you know, you have friends. They always, you never know who's pulling your leg. So they said, you need to call at 8:45 on a particular morning. Well, I was coming back from Europe. I had to fly to Denver for a Shell meeting. So I had this window. So I get out of the plane. I get in a Suburban. And at 8:35, I asked the driver to stop and get out because I had to make an important call. So I called the number. I got nothing. I said, okay, this is certainly someone pulling my leg. So I waited 5 minutes, called back again, and I got the White House right away, and of course got the president. And I'd been there obviously with Joey, and had the opportunity to meet him before, but couldn't have been more gracious, and said that he wanted to give me this honor. And to me, I couldn't believe it to start with, as you would expect. But you know, during that day after, you know, it really settled in, I realized what it meant when you think about, you know, all of the men and women in the military and all the first responders. You know, this was really that original award was for those people. And then it was then made available to people that were not in the military, and obviously Richard, and we were able to get this. But for my family, probably more important than the next Indy win for me, as I said, this is more important because it takes all the things you've tried to do in your life, and someone at a very high position realizes you made a difference for people inside and outside, and to have your family at the White House be in that and to have them experience that, it's something you'll never forget. I mean, it means that more than any race win or probably any championship. Think about it. Ask your dad.
Yeah.
Would he give up a championship to go to the White House and get the Medal of Honor? I guarantee he would.
Yeah, for sure.
Big deal.
Thank you very much for doing this today, man. I appreciate
Pleasure,
it.
yeah. Thank you.
Enjoy.
All the best. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey Motorsports fans, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit subscribe before you go for all the latest news and highlights across motorsports.